Let's bring in our reporters covering all of this. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez, NBC's Ryan Nobles on Capitol Hill, and Leanne Caldwell, who covers the Capitol for Puck. Gabe, let's start with the meeting happening right now. What is the president's message there this morning?
Hi, Anna. Good morning. Well, the president is trying to show a unified front here for the Republican Party. He's really heaping praise on Speaker Mike Johnson throughout the morning, speaking to reporters several times. He's right now speaking to the Republican conference behind closed doors. We're just getting some video of the ovation that he got as he entered the room. And the president is also saying that he does not expect there to be any meaningful cuts to Medicaid in this one big beautiful bill that he's touting. He's saying the goal is to focus on just waste, fraud, and abuse, but that might not sit well with some hardline conservatives who do want to see structural reforms to Medicaid in order to bring down the deficit. The president also appearing to flip on that state and local tax deduction. He says that he's not in favor any longer of raising the cap on that deduction. That's something that he signaled that he was open to during the campaign, but now he says raising it would only benefit Democrat governors in high tax states. Again, that might not sit well with some other Republicans. Now, the president was also asked if the Republican holdouts at this point were grandstanders. He says there are one or two grandstanders, but that they would be to blame, as well as Democrats, if this mega bill did not pass. Anna.
Ryan, what do those key Republicans on the Hill, some of those holdouts, want to hear from Trump this morning in this meeting?
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much what they want to hear from Trump, but what Trump wants to say to them. And inside the room, my colleagues Julie Sirkin and Melanie Zanona are reporting that Trump was very clear with the holdouts on both sides, telling the SALT Republicans to agree to the cap that the Speaker, Mike Johnson, has set, although the details on that are not exactly 100% clear. And he's also telling the hardliners on the deficit reductions who want to see those steep Medicaid cuts not to mess with Medicaid. He actually used the F word when talking about Medicaid. He said, don't F with Medicaid, only focus on fraud and abuse. So what Trump is making clear to these House Republicans, those that are right now the holdouts in passing this bill, that all sides have to give. Nobody is going to get exactly what they want in this package, but the package in totality is too important to him and his agenda that they can't mess around with it at this point. They need to get it passed. And keep in mind, Anna, that Mike Johnson is targeting a possible deadline of the end of this week to get it out of the House and then over to the Senate, because once it gets to the Senate, it's going to be a whole nother round of negotiations, and it's very likely that the bill will change, and it could change very dramatically from the way it looks right now in the House of Representatives. So Trump making it very clear to these House Republicans not to grandstand, not to try and make a name for themselves by holding out on this bill. He wants to see it pass, and he wants to see it pass as soon as possible, even if they don't love every aspect of it. Anna?
Leanne, the cuts to Medicaid have become a hot-button issue around this bill. Here's what President Trump said about that just a short time ago as he was heading into this meeting.
We're not doing any cutting of anything meaningful. We're not changing Medicaid, and we're not changing Medicare, and we're not changing Social Security. Here's what I want on Medicaid. We're not touching anything.
Leanne, set the record straight. How will this bill affect Medicaid?
Yeah, so estimates show that it could affect as many as 8 to 10, sometimes some say 13 million people could lose their Medicaid coverage because of this bill. The Republican messaging is much different than the reality of what the impacts will be. A lot of those impacts are going to come from forced work requirements and new requirements placed on people who receive Medicaid that'll drop a lot of people from the rolls, in fact. And so this is something that Democrats are intensely focused on, the fact that some of these cuts are going to come depending on when Republicans have this start date of when these new requirements are put in place. An earlier version of the bill said not till 2029. That is after Trump leaves office. And so he wouldn't have to deal with the people who lose their Medicaid coverage. The hardliners are demanding that deadline or that start date move up much more to be much more soon. And so there could be some political benefits or impacts, I should say, But the thing is with this, the president is here at a very pivotal moment. No one thinks that this bill can pass without the president. Speaker Mike Johnson has been relying on the president throughout his entire speakership to get through these very difficult votes. And so far, the president has been quite successful. And I'm told that the message is going to be that if this bill does not pass this week, it's going to be an embarrassment for the president. But as far as some of these hot button issues are concerned, Democrats are sure to make this a campaign issue.
And so, Ryan, talk to us about your reporting as far as the Democrats play now. Do they have a plan?
The Democratic plan right now is basically to allow Republicans to fight with each other and to try and come up with some sort of bill, as Leanne points out, that they can message against. There isn't much that Democrats can do that can stand in the way of this bill passing. They can offer up their own policy alternatives. They can offer up amendments through this process to try and slow it down. That's something that they can do both in the House and in the Senate, but particularly in the Senate. But keep in mind, Anna, that this is a bill that can pass without a single Democratic vote. There's enough votes in the House where it is a simple majority. And in the Senate, because it's going through the budget reconciliation process, it only requires a simple majority in the Senate as well, which is out of the ordinary. So this is all going to be on Republicans to get over the finish line. And so what you're going to see Democrats do is show the divisions within the Republican Party, trying to amplify those divisions, and then whatever product emerges as a result of it, try and point out the real world impact that this is going to have on Americans across the board with an eye towards the 2026 midterms. They want to make it clear that elections have consequences, and the consequences of the 2024 election will be this package, which they believe will be damaging to many Americans. Of course, Republicans feel very differently. They think that this bill will go to finally solving the deficit crisis and the debt crisis, which they have been campaigning on for many, many years. Anna.
And Leanne, Democratic leadership has expressed frustration that this markup is scheduled overnight at 1 a.m. Here's what they're saying. Listen.
House Republicans are trying to jam this reckless and extreme budget down the throats of the American people and hide what's in it. Can someone explain to me why they would hold a hearing to advance the bill at 1 a.m. in the morning?
1 a.m. 1 a.m. If you have a bill that you are proud of, you do not hold the hearing at 1 a.m.
Leanne, are Republicans trying to sneak stuff through, or is it just sort of the way scheduling works out in a bill like this?
Well, they would say it's because they need the maximum amount of time in order to nail down the details, and that they're giving themselves to 1 a.m. to give them time to get this to the floor before the end of the week, to pass this before Memorial Day. But I will say that this bill is still changing. And so having an overnight markup or committee hearing in the Rules Committee to advance this bill that could change until the very minute that they vote on that does raise a lot of questions and does not give a lot of time for members to actually read what is in the bill, especially when that has been a key critique Republicans have had for many, many years, and one of the demands they've had about how the House changes how it operates. But Mike Johnson thinks that they're in crunch time, and that is more important to him.